Hi, I'm Van Phillips, European Tour winner and PGA coach, and in today's lesson I'm going to teach you the lob shot. Okay, the lob shot then. So obviously not all lob shots are the same. Sometimes we're on fluffy grass, sometimes we're on tight grass. Okay, so I'm going to assume we're on a relatively flat lie here. So we're not going to get into technical changes that you'd need to make on slopey lies. But for your basic lob shot technique, we need to understand the difference between those two lies. So I'm going to start off with the fluffy lie, and I'm going to deal with the face-on setup aspects. Now, you want to take a 60 degree or more, please, if you're going to give yourself the best chance to play a successful lob shot. All the best tour pros in the world generally have a 60 or more. Phil Mickelson sometimes has a 64 degree lob wedge in there. So when we see him making those miracle flop shots, part of his ability to be able to do that is the fact that he's got the right club in his hand. So get that loft in your hand. We want to increase the loft even more, so we need to open that club face. So we're going to take the club, leading edge pointing vertically to the sky, and we're going to swivel it through about 45 degrees. So leading edge here, 45 degrees, then we're going to take the grip. Okay, please take your grip after you swivel it. Okay, if you grip it then swivel it, you're going to probably close that club face again when you're actually swinging. So make sure you open it first and then take your grip. Club face we've got correct now. Actual stance width, shoulder width is a good idea. You're going to generally be making at least a 3/4 swing when you hit a lob shot, so you want a nice solid base. Now, when you're on a fluffy lie, we really want to encourage a pretty horizontal angle of attack. We don't want that club coming down too steeply when we're on a fluffy lie, because A, you might go too much underneath the ball and completely whiff it, or B, you might actually make the trajectory come down a bit low, which we don't want for a lob shot. When we get steep, you generally get lower launch angles, and we don't want that. We want the highest possible launch angle, so we want that club coming in horizontally. What's going to help us to do that is to get your weight distribution very even. Don't lean on the front leg when you're on a fluffy lie. Get your weight 50-50 between the 2 feet. Okay, so have a little fiddle around there at address, maybe lean to one side, bring it back, really balance yourself and feel very even on both feet. Ball position's key as well. If we're going to get a nice horizontal angle of attack, we want that ball to be slightly forward in the stance. Get it sort of opposite the lead pec or even the lead armpit. You can play around with that, but certainly forward of the sternum. And again, that forward ball position is going to give us a good chance to come in nice and shallow with that club. Okay, go back over these setup fundamentals as many times as you need to, but you've got to get them right. Now, alignment, if I turn around and we look at this shot I'm faced with here, I've got not a lot of green to work with, and remember we've twisted that club open. Now that can be confusing because you can think that because the club's way open, you need to aim way to the left. Now, you don't need to do that. You won't need to aim as much left as you think, because when we're using a club with lots of loft, the ball goes much nearer to the direction that you swing in and not where the face points. Okay, you don't need to get massively technical and explain that situation. Just trust me that the ball will go much more in the direction of your swing and not where it points. So you can aim pretty parallel. You can get those shoulders, hips and knees pretty parallel to your intended target line. You might need to be a little bit open. You've got to experiment with that. What I recommend is you go hit these lob shots after I teach you the technique, and you play around with your alignment until you get the ball taking off on target. There's nothing set in stone in golf. Anyone that tells you there's an exact way to do anything, I'd run a mile. So it's always a bit of experimentation. You might need to be a bit open, but not too much. So when we're on the fluffy lie, I want to talk about technique now. Got those setup aspects out of the way. I want you to think of Jason Day when you're on a fluffy lie. Now the reason I say that is because Jason Day has a chipping action that's actually quite wooden, if you like. He doesn't use his wrists very much, and he sweeps the club away, back and through with a fairly rigid wrist action, and that's great if you want a shallow angle of attack, which is what we want for this shot. So we're going to keep those wrists fairly passive back and through here. I'm going to demonstrate in full speed from down the line because I want you to see the ball actually take off and land, and then I'm going to show you a slow motion from face on where you're going to really see how passive my wrists are. You're not going to see a lot of wrist cock, you're going to see a fairly wooden arm swing back and through, and that's going to give me that shallow angle of attack. So watch the next two demonstrations, one in full speed, one in slow motion. Okay, so what I'd like you to look for in that slow-mo is I'd like you to look for how my wrists stay nice and passive on the way back, and on the way through I want you to look for how my hands and club head will come pretty much into line at impact. You won't see my hands a long way ahead. That's telling you that I'm getting a nice shallow angle of attack, and that's why I was able to drop that ball down quite softly, about 2 feet away from the flag there. So the difference now is I've moved to a reasonably tight fairway lie, and for that reason I've got to make some changes. If I come in very shallow now from a fairway lie that's quite tight, then the bounce on the bottom of my wedge has got a good chance to do just that and bounce up in the air, and then we're going to get thinned shots, which obviously is not what we require. That's going to shoot the ball across the green. So we've got to change our angle of attack here. We've got to get the club coming down a bit more steeply into the ball. So we've got to make a setup change. We still want that ball forward. The ball position is going to stay the same, but this time I want you to shift that weight from 50-50 to about 70-30. I want you to get about 70% of the weight on that front foot, and I want you to keep it there throughout the swing. So as you take the club back, I don't want you to shift your weight. I want you to keep it on that front foot. That's going to give you a better chance to get the club down a bit more steeply into the ball. Now, from a tight lie, the other thing that's not often talked about is focus, visual focus point. Now, you must remember that to deliver this club to a millimetre spot on the ground, you've got to be very visually intense, okay? I want you to think about if you've ever banged a nail into a piece of wood, what do you focus on? You focus 100% on that nail head. You don't think about your technique. You intently watch that nail head because you don't want to hit your thumb with the hammer. And that's exactly what I want you to do when you're on a tight lie and you're required to hit a lob shot, which is a very precision shot. You've got to have intense focus on a tiny spot on the back of that golf ball, and it's got to be your intention to deliver that club head down to that exact millimetre spot. Now, I can't stress this enough. You can have the best technique and setup in the world, and if you don't have intense visual focus, you'll be very inconsistent with this shot. The other technical aspect is we've got the weight forward. You're focusing nice and intensely there on that spot, but I also want you to now get a little bit more wristy in your backswing and feel like you're picking that club up a little bit more steeply with your wrists, and that's also going to help you to have this hammer-like feeling, if you like, where you're going to pick it up with the wrists, and quite literally I want you to feel like you're driving the club down to that tiny millimetre spot. Now, on the way through impact, as you drive that club down, I want you to feel that lead wrist going very floppy, and I want you to feel it cupping. I want you to feel it extending, okay, extension there, or cupping of the wrist, and you're going to feel the club head going past your hands, okay? Club head going past your hands. So a couple of little technical things. This is a more difficult shot when it's on a tight line. So again, I'm going to demonstrate down the line in full speed, and then once in slow motion, You're going to see those differences in setup, you're going to see the differences in wrist cop. Go ahead and watch these two demonstrations. Okay, so please watch those two demonstrations, the fluffy lie and the tight lie, as many times as you need to. Listen to those setup and technical changes and go practice it, okay? Don't just practice from a fluffy lie, practice from the tight lie, the fluffy lie, apply those changes. It's going to help you tremendously. Please subscribe to these videos if you're not subscribed already. Head over to my website www.vanphillips.co.uk. It's on the ending, on the outro of this video, you'll see my website address on there as well. And please, there's a wealth of information on there really is. 35 years of my research, playing with the best in the world and working with the best coaches in the world from a psychology, technical, physical, exercise point of view. I've really sought out the best information on this planet and I've brought it to you on that website, so go check that out. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.